State P-16 Council. I want to welcome the members of the council and also welcome members of the audience to this meeting. We have a full and substantial agenda that we have to go through today. So let's just move ahead quickly. The first item of business is, of course, well, let me back up. We have, I want to introduce one of our council members who has been on the council for, what, 6 or 7 months, but she, for perfectly good reasons, she hasn't been able to attend the last couple of meetings. So this is actually the first meeting that she's attended as a member of the council. Let me introduce Superintendent Melody Johnson, who is the superintendent of the Fort Worth Independent School District. She's been an educational leader all over the country. We share something in common. We spent a lot of time in California, and she is I've had the opportunity to work with her in several different contexts, and every time I've heard Dr. Johnson speak about her commitment to educational achievement, and I've heard about the innovative programs that she's developing in Fort Worth. I've been extremely excited, and I am delighted to welcome her to her first meeting as a member of this council. I'll remind people in the audience that we expanded the council right after I became chair to include a representative of the community college sector, and of course that's President Greg Williams from Odessa College, another member of the business sector, Cesar Maldonado, and we expect him to appear shortly, and to complement the 4 members that we had originally. So welcome.
Thank you.
Let's now get on and go to the matter of approving the minutes. I hope you've all had a chance to look at the minutes. If there aren't any comments about changes or revisions, then I will entertain a motion to adopt to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Let's get on to our next point of business. We have an update on the Workforce Readiness Subcommittee. Larry Temple was supposed to be in charge of this, but unfortunately he couldn't be here today, but we are pleased to have members of the Workforce Readiness Subcommittee here. Do you want to, well, let's see, well, we can't do it until Cesar shows up. Okay. Should we wait until he shows up, or let's do that then? Okay. Let's move on to the next item. Well, here's an issue that is of interest to a lot of people in the room today. We're going to talk about college readiness standards. Is Eddie Hyatt here? See, when you skip an agenda item, that throws everybody off. So we'll. Okay. Okay.
Everybody was up so late watching Super Tuesday results. They're dragging a little bit today.
My apologies to the chairman and the council.
Apology accepted. Welcome.
We're not used to the big city traffic.
Yeah.
Actually, he got lost.
It's easy to get lost trying to come over here. Welcome, Cesar. We'll wait for you to get settled, and then we'll get going with this item on workforce, the work readiness subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real reason we were late is we were so engrossed in our discussions on P-16 we just couldn't let go.
Good.
We have a great group of business folks put together, have been involved in educational initiatives for many years. And I'd like to introduce the committee to the council. Mr. Phil Dreher from Dallas, Mr. Simon Salinas from San Antonio, and Mr. Roger Courier from Laredo. We discussed many of the items that are on the agenda, in addition to today, in addition to a prior conference call with Mr. Temple, and went over the basic charge for the committee. Still in the formative stage, definitely trying to figure out a plan, a productive plan to integrate what we bring to the table and have a collaborative partnership with the other committees, subcommittees that have been appointed by the council. Having said that, I will turn the floor over to Mr. Dreher to.
Should I just introduce myself briefly?
Yes, please. Let's have some self-introductions and your background.
Again, I'm Phil Dreher, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. My background, very briefly, is I graduated from Lamar University with a Bachelor of Science degree in 1967, and I graduated from South Texas College of Law in 1975 with a Juris Doctorate degree. I spent 10 years at Texas Instruments, doing circuit design when none of us knew what really circuit design was all about back in the early days. And then I started my first company in Dallas in 1980, which I built, started from scratch and built it. It was a semiconductor manufacturing operation. At its peak, employed over 1,000 people, and sold that company in 1990. And then I took over a company from Teledyne Systems out in Los Angeles in 1991. Restructured a $300 million division. What we didn't sell or closed, I wound up buying with some venture capital folks in 1993, and rebuilt a new company out of that. And we sold that company in 2001. Subsequent to that, I've actually run a technology investment portfolio, working with people like Morgan Stanley Ventures and Bank of America and Montgomery Securities. And I officially retired about 6 months ago. In terms of extracurricular work, I actually was part of the original 17 committee for the Emerging Technology Fund. Governor Perry appointed me to that position. I am on the Engineering Advisory Council at Lamar University and the Foundation. I'm on the Board of Governors at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra and also the World Affairs Council. And I appreciate the opportunity that Caesar has given me and you all have given me to participate in this, because for me, education and matching it up with industry is probably the #1 priority for somebody like myself.
Good afternoon. Very happy to be here. My name is Simon Salinas. I spent most of my education and career in New York City doing undergraduate and graduate work there. Did mostly corporate work and also worked at a high level in city government in the Department of Finance for several years and worked for the city council. I returned to San Antonio in Texas about 9 years ago and worked again in law. I had the pleasure and opportunity to serve as the chair of Alamo Workforce for about 3 years, and left that board 2 years ago, and I'm now serving as the chairman of the Education Committee for the Texas Association of Workforce Boards. We've been very interested in work readiness standards. We began discussing that many years ago, as did other workforce boards across the state. And my interest here today is the same as Phil's, and that is we really want to see the connection between what's happening both at the lower levels of education as well as the higher levels of education, to make sure that we have a bright, committed, educated workforce for this state and for this country in the future. We have many challenges ahead of us as a country, and it's a good thing that we're beginning to meet them. We're a little bit behind, but I can see there's been a good foundation laid for everyone. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with you.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Roger Curry. I'm currently the Executive Director of the Laredo Development Foundation, but I spent the first 35 years of my career in manufacturing, 17 of it with Frito-Lay and the PepsiCo family, running operations all around the United States. I came to Laredo, actually. I found my way to Laredo to build a manufacturing company, and we took a company that was about $10 million and built it into about $85 million in 5 years down there. Left that company and moved over to this sector, over to the economic development side, because I think Texas, and South Texas specifically, just has a tremendous story to tell. And a tremendous opportunity that we need to broadcast into the international arena. I have been with the Workforce Board down there for 6 years now. First 3 years I was the chairman of the board, and now first vice chair. I also was the first business fellow for the College of Business at TAMU down there, so been very kind of active in this arena for a while. And as I shared with the group, Doctor, when you were down there, the P-16 group, from my perspective, there's probably no single more important task at hand over the next couple of years than the one that we're embarking on right now. Workforce readiness and a skilled workforce is either going to set the tone in a positive way for Texas or not over the next few years, and our ability to attract new business in the different cluster areas that we have. So very pleased, very thankful for this opportunity to participate in this group, and look forward to some real positive results. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that we all have in common is experience with startups, experience with turnarounds, and untold hours of community service and educational initiatives, and a passion for assisting in education. Our dialogue and the couple of meetings we've had has been regarding to process, how to develop a standard in communication with each other, since we're such a diverse state, with such a large state. We have some areas that have some unique requirements that need to be considered in the work that we do. So we discuss process as something that we could help develop, and a communication, a dialogue with the regional P-16 councils in some form or fashion, and actually that would be covered under the development of process. Mr. Dreher headed up our meeting, and he's got a few high points to share with the council.
Good. We're delighted to hear him.
Is there any questions at all first about?
Well, I have some questions. I'd like to defer to other members of the council before I ask mine, but let me say that we're extremely grateful that you're, because of your willingness to serve on this subcommittee. One of our priorities for this council is to align workforce needs more closely with what we do in education, all through the educational pipeline. I know that Commissioner Scott has been working a lot on career pathways and the general array of issues associated with workforce readiness. We think we do a pretty good job of aligning the work of community colleges with workforce readiness. I think we've got a ways to go in terms of universities, but clearly the establishment of this subcommittee and opening up these lines of communication on a regular basis is critical. So with that, if there are questions from other members of the council,
Well, I'm sure I'll have some questions, and you may touch upon this in your comments, but you know, the issue of business expectations for education and the desires and wants of the business community is manifold. There was a study back in the 1990s that said the business community really wants graduates who can communicate, work as a team, and solve problems. And I've heard that, and I think that was one of the studies that came out of the original creation of Achieve. Mm-hmm. And then I've heard businesses come to me and say, well, we really want schools. I need people trained to do what I do, to read my manual and to walk into my job fully trained and ready to go to work. So I think somewhere in between those broad policy concepts and the specific job level training is where we're going to wind up. And I just wanted to throw that out there to see if you had any ways to respond to it.
Yeah, I guess you just realize, I'm sure you realize that so far we've had 1 or 2 phone conversations in our meeting today, and I've not even read yet the document that was in the draft document for the workforce readiness. And so I think a lot of what we'll talk about today, or our comments, will be conceptual in nature. And let me just say that I feel certain that the work that was done for the workforce readiness document is a very good document. But I think it's going to take some time, or we'll need some time to pull a group together, begin to look at that document as it relates to how we view the business community's demand for education, be it K through 12 or college or whatever, because the demands can span a rather large spectrum. And the mechanism that we have kind of decided on, or at least we collectively thought would be a good idea, pending your approval, would be to pull kind of a state-level committee together, very much like the Emerging Technology Fund, composed of some people from the academic side as well as people from the business side, and to begin to review that document in the context of the way we felt like business demands are going to be over the next 10 or 15 years. And in realizing also that business demands change dramatically over a 5 or 10 year period. I know my own personal experience, when I got into the semiconductor business, the four-function calculator had not even been invented yet. And so you can see what's happened from that day, which was 1972, to when we entered 1982 or 83, when we were talking about personal computers and cell phones. There's huge jumps in technology and idea creation that occurs over a decade. So this is not a static process by any means. And so any conclusion that we may come to in the foreseeable future will have to be reviewed on a periodic basis to make sure that the educational system is keeping track with business demands. And of course, our sectors of business in Texas could also change. And so what we're kind of recommending is that we pull a group together, maybe the same, it was a workable number, 15 or 16 people, combination of business representation as well as academic representation, and to begin to review the work that's been done so far and to see how it matches up. This is kind of a workforce preparedness as viewed from the bottom up, if you will, us taking the same view but maybe from a top-down perspective, and then seeing within that document where there is alignment and where there is mismatch and where there likely some additional tweaking might occur. But and also the thing it would also provide, the capability it would provide, would be a mechanism by which we could then communicate with the regional P-16s and vice versa. We created a standard mechanism for communicating, for instance, with the regional Emerging Technology Fund centers and the state center, and that went very, very well because very quickly we were all on the same page. They understood what we expected. We understood what they were going to produce, and our ability to communicate went way up very, very quickly. And I think that's one of the things that allowed that committee to be so effective so quickly. So I would recommend that we apply the same type of methodology to this group and begin to move this along very, very quickly.
I think the only thing I would add, Commissioner, to partially address your question, and that is I think when you hear employers say that, they're both right, because they're both looking at it from a different perspective. And the fact is that does make the task for education that much harder. But I think that if you talk to people who look at this on a daily basis as part of their lives, the type of preparation that people need to do those jobs is very much the same, and that is they need to have a high level of understanding in mathematics, science, and critical thinking, and those skills. Whether somebody chooses to pursue one career path versus another will determine those finer skills that they have to learn. So I think when you talk to employers, they're both correct, and they're both telling you what I think we do need to do, and that is have a base core of knowledge, but also be flexible in terms of what those outputs need to be. And as Phil said, it needs to adapt continuously because that's how quickly business is changing in this global economy.
Yeah, I was just also going to make think a lot of the work that's been done is probably we'll find that it probably aligns nicely with that. So we're really looking forward to having an opportunity to peruse that document.
I might just make one other comment, and that is, in terms of the overall, there's really two critical issues going around here. One is, in terms of the United States and certainly Texas, one is economic leadership, and the other one is what I call the creation of ideas, idea creation leadership in the state of Texas or the U.S. And the one thing that is very clear is whereas the United States has been for many, many years the economic center because our GDP has been so high, that is moving away from us with countries like China and India and Asia in the aggregate, as well as the old Eastern European countries are now beginning to create GDP. And as those people move up into the middle class, when you add up all their aggregate economy, it is going to make the size of the American economy look much smaller on a relative basis. And so whereas for the last 4 decades or 5 decades, the creation center, the idea creation center, and the economic center has been in the U.S., we're finding ourselves in a position where the economic center is now moving out into the Pacific Ocean. That's probably the first time in history that those two centers of gravity have actually separated. And so in our view, matching the education with industry will help us maintain the idea creation leadership, which is going to be critical to us over the next 2 or 3 decades. And so this is not a next year problem or 2 years from now problem. We're really dealing with issues that are going to decide whether or not Texas, certainly in the U.S., and the U.S. and the globe generally, is going to be the center of idea creation and technology creation, because that's where the real value occurs in any GDP. You can move manufacturing where you want, and certain skills will be required in certain places, but it's the idea and technology creation which is going to create value. And I think, therefore, what we're doing right now, in my view, could not be more critical.
Any other questions or comments? I have a couple of questions. Well, one is a comment and has a question embedded in it. I've been reading a lot of articles and other kinds of materials that make the argument that if you're going to take youngsters from backgrounds where they haven't had a lot of exposure to education, where they come from families that for whatever reasons don't have a tradition of high educational expectation and consequently don't have high educational expectations for their own kids, that you not only have to work with these children in a way that promotes educational outcomes, but you have to contextualize the improvement of those educational outcomes in some process of socialization. And the research shows that you have to not only provide these children educational skills, but you have to make it clear to them why those educational skills are important. And in teaching of those educational skills, you have to teach them basic habits of success in this country, that just as you have to complete homework assignments on time, that you have to be prepared to show up to work on time, and that there are some socialization skills that schools find it necessary to provide their children because for whatever reasons they're not getting them at home. It's interesting that in various settings recently, I've heard business people talk about people come to job interviews inappropriately dressed. That they come to job interviews and they don't know how to present themselves. They don't look you in the eye when they respond to questions. They don't listen carefully to questions. And if that's true, and as I said, I've read a considerable amount of literature on this subject, we could really benefit from some advice about how we can teach these success skills that translate from the classroom into an occupational setting and what effective ways of promoting those skills are. Robert and I talked about this to some extent, that we've got to teach children how to be successful in American society and American culture, and a lot of kids don't know about that. And so it's not just it's life skills as well as educational and academic skills, and we need to hear from you about not only what kinds of skills you want people to have when they start working for you, whether they come out of high school, a community college, or a university, but we need to know what kinds of skills you expect when they go and apply for jobs at your companies.
Well, I think some of the work that I know that's been done in the private sector has to do with, and it gets into the discussion around behaviors and attitudes. Can you really go address an attitude? And generally, the information that I've seen and some of the work that was done, at least in the PepsiCo group, really pointed us back to the behaviors, and that you need that one of the challenges is to identify those transferable behaviors. If you need to dress for success, well, it's a behavior, and it's transferable into the school system at different levels. But if you allow a student to come to school and you feel like stapling his pants up around his waist because they're down around his knees, that's a behavior that has to be modified early in the process. And that's an exaggeration, but you understand that so maybe there'd be some work around the types of behaviors that once changed, that you, as you focus on those behaviors, that learning will transfer into the next next life's experience, be it going to an interview or whatever the case might be. And I don't pretend to know exactly how we would do that with all of the different high school curriculums, but that is certainly not a behavior that we would wait to college, as an example, to go after.
Well, I think what I'm asking is that as you do your work, that you consult with your colleagues in the business world and ask what skills do recent graduates, as I say, from either high school or community college or universities, what kinds of skills do you see lacking time and again, and how can we work together to prepare our students better for the workplace, apart from the obvious academic skills and so forth? I think that's something that we often overlook, and we don't understand how deeply unfamiliar a lot of our students are with these issues. I'm familiar with. I was struck by the fact that at one of our university campuses, if you go into the Career and Placement Center on this campus, there are mannequins on either side of the door, and one is a female mannequin, and it has an example of how you should dress for a job interview, and on the other side is a male mannequin, and as you would expect, I remember it clearly. The mannequin has a blue blazer, has a white shirt, has an appropriate tie, and a pair of slacks. And the first thing they do is present to their upcoming graduates a sense of how you dress appropriately for a job interview, because they know that a lot of their students don't have that. And I happen to know that in the Career and Placement Center, they tell their male students, pull up your pants.
I think a lot of it gets down to the issue of generally people will give you what you'll accept, and if you create an environment where that kind of behavior is not acceptable, then you'll see their behavior begin to change. I know there's one school in Dallas, South Dallas, that's attended primarily by underprivileged minority students who don't even have the money to go buy the clothes you just described. Yeah. But they're donated by various individuals around the city, and the kids come in, they actually pick up their clothes, and they start from day one learning how to wear a sport coat, a pair of slacks, and a tie. And those kids are, A, grateful for the opportunity, but B, that's the only place that they're getting that experience. It's not coming from home or any place else. It's the first time that someone said, I don't accept your behavior the way you walked in here. Your behavior is going to change. And so I think in many cases we may have become all too tolerant of unacceptable situation, and what we're breeding in effect is people who are not prepared to go into the workplace for a whole host of reasons, and that just has, plain and simply, has got to be turned around.
I think the one thing I would add is that if we have the mindset that going to school is a student's first job, that's the way to understand it. Because what we would expect somebody who's older, who's entering the workforce, are those qualities that you want us to focus on. You can ask the same question from the people in the educational community, our principals, teachers, superintendents. That is that student's first job. What would you expect? Because from the perspective of, that community is one of our biggest employers in the state. They know what they want to see, and I think the business employers want to see those same things. So they have the edge because they see them first, and I think that's a perfect opportunity to begin to inculcate those skills for success.
Yes. Commissioner, if I could just to that one point, and I'm not sure from a process standpoint how this will happen, but that's the reason that it's important that we have a joint subcommittee at our level where my service on the school board has taught me that the rules in the school district are different than the rules in the workplace, and that point was made by Mr. Curry. As we develop solutions for these challenges, it'll bring balance to the subcommittee's report, that there's an understanding from the business community on what the limitations are today, what we need to do to change those limitations, and the dialogue between educators, academicians, and the business community is critical to the success, in our view, of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I would just say I really agree that dialogue is important. I very much appreciate, as my colleagues here, this group, and I think it's sorely needed. Just to comment on a couple of things that were brought up, I do think it's important that we balance the technical and the academics with the personal and professional needs that the kids are going to have to be aware of when they go into the workforce. I think they get all kinds of mixed messages from their communities, from the media, what is expected when they go one place versus when they are another place. And we do have to teach those things, especially the way kids are growing up and being exposed to so much more than we were. I think I was struck by the talk about the socialization skills. I do think that is something, work ethics and responsibility in the workforce, how to be a team player. It's not about you. I think that's not unique. The teaching of those things is not unique to the low-income and minority children. I think that's something we are seeing with all kids now for various reasons. Never having consequences, being rescued from consequences, it results in the same kind of behaviors when kids go into the workforce. So I think it's something we have to address with all groups of students as we go forward in this work. I also appreciate the comments about idea creation. My niece is applying to MBA programs right now. She's a hot commodity because she has an arts background. They're looking for leaders, and they're looking for people who have creativity and creative ideas and can generate ideas as well as respond to ideas. So I welcome this group very, very much, and we need the cohesion, we need the direction in the K-12, PK-12 system, because it changes rapidly. I think, Phil, you said that we get lined up to teach in coursework, coherent sequences of courses, get the people trained, we start the kids through, and everything has changed before they can finish. So things are changing as quickly as technology, so we need that ongoing communication. I've been involved in the workforce solutions and all that since the 80s, and what I see happening is it comes up and then it goes away. And I think it's imperative that we keep a close connection and communication as we go forward. So I appreciate very much this committee and your work and your leadership.
Any other comments or questions? Once again, thank you very much for your willingness to serve on this committee, and we look forward to your recommendations. We particularly can we align our educational agenda more closely with that of our economic and workforce agenda. But in terms of how you organize, how you prefer to go about your task, it's very open-ended. I would say that clearly, if there are some recommendations that you want to make, that you ultimately will make, that have legislative implications, that obviously we need to have those within the next 6 or 7 months, so that we can think about those. But
we ought to have a good shot at it within 6 months.
I would also say that as we at the TEA are developing, curriculum standards, and I know the members of your organization are not going to be curriculum experts, but it'd be great to know from your perspective if we're getting it right, getting it wrong, and particularly, I'll give you an example, the career and technology courses. We're going to rewrite the curriculum and look at all the different kind of courses. Having people from those fields tell us the stuff you're putting in there is out of date by 10 years would be a great thing, so we can make sure that we're up to date. And just like you were saying, business needs change rapidly. When we get the crack at the curriculum, we need to make sure that we're up to date.
I'm assuming, Commissioner, that this draft alignment, it has that in there, right?
Well, I'm talking the college readiness standards. We absolutely sought the input of business, but as we go forward with the school curriculum, the state standards in each
I see what you're
subject
saying.
area,
Okay, I misunderstood.
and in particular courses, it'd be great to have that kind of feedback.
Well, the recommendation, I think, was that we would come up with a committee of 15 to 17 people that would embody some business folks and some people from the world of academia. Do we recruit the academics ourselves? I mean, how do we get from here to that committee?
We can do it either way you like. If you would like some help in finding people from different sectors represented around this table, if you want some superintendents, we'd ask Superintendent Johnson to make some recommendations. If you want people from TEA generally, or if you would like Commissioner Scott to help you identify some people. Obviously, a lot of the issues that you're interested in have profound ramifications for community colleges. I'm sure that President Williams would be happy to help you, and I would be happy to help in any way. The members of the council are willing to help you any way you would like to proceed.
We'll coordinate through you.
Yeah, we'll take that charge and get a memo to the council
to the text by the State Board of Education. I want to make a few comments about the standards that I think are applicable to what was said by the Workforce Subcommittee. While all of the standards were well received, the ones that were most enthusiastically supported and the ones that make the Texas college readiness standards different from any of the other standards that you have are the cross-disciplinary standards. And these were really, in part, a recognition of the importance of many of the things that the Workforce Subcommittee just talked about. The idea of problem solving, critical thinking, analytical thinking, being able, creativity. I want to remember that center of idea creation. That these are things that cross disciplines, not only the 4 disciplines that are in the college readiness standards, but it crosses into the fine arts. It crosses into learning languages, being with other cultures. So I think that the cross-disciplinary standards were really a critical factor for what we are going to see in upcoming generations of Texas students that set them apart from others and really provide a strong foundation. It would be nice to think that the work of college readiness standards was now over. However, the real job has just started. We have the standards, but the next task is really going to be building awareness across a variety of audiences. We plan to do this by working primarily through people like the workforce councils and particularly our P-16 regional councils, which have many of the same responsibilities on the regional level that this council has at the state level. We need to work with faculty at higher ed institutions. I had a faculty member at my home this weekend who was looking at the college readiness standards, and this person teaches in a graduate program. And he said, you know, if we have students coming out of high school who can do this, then graduate programs throughout the country are going to have to change because your students are going to be way more advanced than what we're used to getting. So I think that this is going to be a real opportunity for us to work with faculty and to build some of the support systems that will be necessary for students at the higher ed level. We, of course, will continue our collaboration with public education, and Joseph is going to be talking about that. With the workforce, you can already see, and I assume that the commissioners want their staff to be working with the workforce subcommittee to make certain that we have a tight agreement and that there's a strong understanding that these are not just college readiness skills, but these are to assure that all students, regardless of what they choose to do immediately following high school, have the opportunity to go to college, have the opportunity for career advancement, not just entry-level jobs. We need to work with parents and make certain they understand that these standards really are challenging standards for students, and that many of the things, again, that you were talking about earlier with making certain that students understand the responsibilities that go along with going to college, that go along with going to work, are instilled early and are supported by parents and the community. And finally, we have to work very much with colleges of education. What we're asking of students, we're also asking of teachers and faculty. Again, the critical thinking, the creative thinking. Dr. Johnson made a comment about the need to be changing up the alignment of curriculum and to be changing courses as times change. That means we have to have faculty that can move with the times and adjust to these changing issues. So we have a lot of big jobs ahead of us. We will keep you informed. I think you all have a copy of the standards that were adopted. And I don't know, Joseph, do you want to talk about the legislative response? Because we've only finished part 1 of the legislation that was adopted in 2006.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Kohanic. I'm the director of the College Readiness Program at the Texas Education Agency. Basically, Eddie's just giving you the big picture, and the co-presenter is going to give you the teacher big picture, the big picture about the teacher preparation. I'm basically going to provide you with a few nuts and bolts of what's yet to come. Essentially, we've completed phase one. A lot of work has been put forth in a relatively short period of time. February up until September, a lot of work was put forth to make these standards a reality. Now we're approaching phase two of this process. Essentially, phase two is going to deal with a gap analysis. The teams will be involved in looking at the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills and comparing them to the college readiness standards and conducting a gap analysis and see where their overlap exists. Prior to that occurring, the teams, there's going to be a shift from a 60 to 40 shift. There's going to 60% will be public educators and 40% will be representing higher education. And as I indicated, they'll be working toward the gap analysis, or working on the gap analysis. After that's completed, that task is complete, they will approach phase three of the program. And phase three basically is statutorily defined under House Bill 1. And it involves instructional strategies to incorporate the college readiness standards. It also involves a professional development piece. And then it mentions online support materials for students who need additional assistance. So that's the direction that this initiative is headed toward. And we're looking forward at the agency forward to moving on to phase two and then subsequently moving on to phase three.
Good afternoon. I'm Marina Valentine-Wall, the Executive Director of the Institute for Public School Initiatives at UT System. It's always hard to get that out. Commissioner Paredes and Commissioner Scott, this is the first time I've actually publicly been able to say Commissioner Scott, so it feels really good. Let me congratulate both of you on the work your teams did in getting the college readiness standards where they are. I believe they're among the best in the country, and I say that with sincerity. And look forward to the gap analysis. That's going to be an interesting experience. I've elected to take kind of a 10,000-foot view of the teacher preparation and its integration with the new college readiness standards. These are my own ideas and do not reflect my subcommittee. It goes without saying that teachers will need to have a grounding in the content matter related to the new college readiness standards. But it's going to require a quantum leap before every teacher has the training and tools to lead his or her students to the heights required to meet these new college readiness standards. Teachers need to be trained to teach students and not subjects. Now, that may seem really obvious, but when I ran a K-12 college prep school and interviewed over 500 candidates personally for teaching positions, I asked one key question. What do you love most about teaching? If they ever answered, and a lot of them did, I love to convey my subject matter. I never hired them. If they answered, I love to see the light go on in a kid's eyes when they really get it, they were in. And just let me ask you a question. How many high school teachers teach subjects versus students? And what about higher education faculty? To really teach individual students, and we have a very diverse student population these days, teachers need a framework of a clinical medical model. They need to diagnose what learning is needed, prescribe an appropriate course of study or intervention, and then execute. Dr. Vaughn's three-tier intervention model is basically a medical triage model. As a primary core program of instruction, followed by a secondary, more intensive set of work for students who are struggling, and a very different approach, a tertiary approach, for students who are diagnosed with specific learning differences such as dyslexia. UT Elementary School, under Dr. Vaughn's direction, after implementing the three-tier model with fidelity, increased the percent of students reaching commended on tax from 17% to 50% in 1 year. In order to implement such a model as the three-tier model, teachers need better tools.
Same resources, right?
Same resources. Same reading program, same teachers. But really, the diagnostic
different focus, same resources.
Different focus, same resources. In 1 year. That's after Sandy Crest got after us because they were so low. Teachers need better tools to diagnose and intervene, and in my estimation, we're unfortunately about 30 years behind where we need to be in the area of diagnostic instruments. What will help us catch up is if we vigorously infuse cognitive neuroscience into the field of education. Raymond, we've talked about that. We've, tried to think about how to move that forward. But very simply, we need to better understand how the mind works and how individual students learn. Real research that will take us well beyond the rudimentary concept of learning styles. Special education students receive training in response to intervention, a 3-tier model, and developing individual education plans. But regular education students often do not receive this type of training. We need to break the silos and share information between special education and regular education. UT Austin is launching an urban education pilot to do just that. We also need to blend pedagogy and content instruction. The highly successful UTeach model that is being replicated in 12 sites nationally does a very good job of this. I would also add that we need to blend the theoretical and the practical, the theoretical and the applied, as I think Phil mentioned. Teacher candidates need to have a firm command of specific instructional tools, such as middle school math diagnostic tools, the Texas Primary Reading Inventory. We don't send doctors into the field without knowing how to use the basic tools and equipment in their profession, and we should not allow teachers to do that either. Teachers will obviously need training in what the new college readiness standards are, and it looks like, Joseph, there are going to be opportunities for that to happen through the PD that will be created. They will also need to increase their expectations about which students can indeed meet these high standards. In a 2006 middle school teacher survey conducted by the Southern Regional Education Board, 94% of the teachers said they did have a copy of the standards. That's the good news. But only 22% of the teachers said that 81% or more of the students, it's an odd number, but that's the survey, were meeting the standards. What's most alarming to me is that only 38% of these middle school teachers said that most students should meet the same set of academic standards. I would echo what Phil on the first panel stated. Generally, people give you what you expect, and in many instances, teachers expect too little. In the same study of middle school grades by SREB, they found that only 11% of the 8th grade students were receiving an intensive, rigorous science curriculum. And this was a loose definition. It included hands-on projects monthly and lab experiments like twice a semester. 45% were receiving a low level of rigor in their science studies. As part of increasing expectations for students, teachers need specific training on how to develop rigorous assignments that require the critical thinking and analysis and problem solving that's not only needed for higher education, but obviously for the workforce as well. Whoops. There it is. In a South Carolina Department of Education analysis of assignments given to students in grades K through 8, they discovered that the level of assignments falls further and further behind the grade level standards as you move up into middle school. The results were even more dismal for high school. Notice the widening gap. Sandy Crest has shared these next four slides with many of you, but I repeat them as I think they demonstrate the difference between an assessment question on a state test and an assessment question on NAEP. Here is the reading excerpt on the state test. Just take a moment to read that question. This won't be a final exam, but there'll be the test question coming up next. Now here are the response options. The correct answer does not require serious analysis. It does require some basic reading comprehension. Here is the NAEP example, and unfortunately you can't
read it very well, but it's kind of an ad, and there's some descriptions about what you have to do to place the ad. The question, what is an acceptable way to place a $1 bargain basement ad in this newspaper, does require the reader to do some careful thinking. I mean, when I went through this, I actually had to think about the answer. And also, this assignment is relevant. It is somewhat interesting. The earlier slide showing the trajectory of alignment between rigorous assignments meeting state standards showed that widening gap. Even though it appears that we are more on track in the lower grades, we cannot let up there. In fact, we most probably will need a little acceleration in the important foundation years to have students prepared for the college readiness standards. If you cannot read with fluency and comprehension, you cannot do high-level work. And we cannot ignore the importance of reading and early numeracy in those foundation years. The pyramid on this chart is from the New Skills Commission report, Tough Choices or Tough Times, which came out in 2007. And although the Commission report has received some criticism, it has been widely praised for its analysis of the global workforce skills situation. I highlighted 3 areas to match what our business leaders said in Texas was important for students being prepared for the workforce: critical thinking, problem solving, team collaboration, and innovation, that same idea of idea creation. They also clearly value professionalism and a strong work ethic, which echoes what Dr. Paredes stated. Teachers need training in how to teach some of these important skills required by workforce. College readiness and workforce readiness are more similar in this century than any before, and Edie, I think the standards reflected the blend of that, both the workforce and higher education needs. A major challenge is to adapt our teaching to the teacher candidates in our classes as well as to our K-12 students that they will be teaching. Most teacher candidates, as well as their students, will fall within the millennials who were born between roughly 1980 and 1994. These are the people who are plugged in, rarely read newspapers, they're impatient, they hate busy work, they learn by doing, they don't write letters, they want instant feedback, they have friends from different cultures, and they need flexibility. We need a more iPodian approach to teaching these students. How's that for coining a new approach to education? An iPodian approach to teaching these students. High-tech and smaller, more concentrated learning bites. You know, we've got everything based on the Carnegie units that were invented, 1900s? 1906. And a lot of learning can be done in smaller, bite-sized modules, and we need to figure out ways to do that. The course that changed my education career was not taught within a college of education. It was a course on data-driven decisions taught by one of the leading biostatisticians in the world at Stanford, a fellow named Lincoln Moses. It's fun to have a class from a guy named Lincoln Moses. He taught me the difference between actionable research that demonstrates causation and just interesting research. Educators need to become much more savvy about what constitutes truly rigorous scientific research that can actually demonstrate efficacy. Recently, an educator in a school district told a nationally recognized math researcher that they were selecting a math curriculum which had little to no scientific evidence to back it up because it fit in with their philosophy and belief system. In closing, I'll just leave with 2 slides. The state of medicine today. A doctor treating a cancer patient today through a remarkably sophisticated bunch of diagnostic tests can identify genetic markers within that individual and develop a completely patient-specific treatment. You have your own individualized chemotherapy, radiation treatment, or whatever. It's just remarkable to see what's possible. The vision for the future in education is highly trained teachers who will have refined diagnostic assessments to determine how individual students best learn, research-based instructional and intervention tools to meet the needs of each individual child, and data monitoring and reporting systems to provide immediate feedback on how well the instructional interventions are working. It's a high-level look at how teacher education may need to be transformed to meet the needs of our P-16 Educator Quality Committee met in January. We have 4 subcommittees that are working to develop actionable plans off the report that we submitted last spring. And those are the Educator Retention, Preparation, and Recruitment Committees. And we've added our Higher Education Committee subcommittee. So any of you in the audience who are interested in improving instruction in higher education, we'd be delighted for you to join the committee. And I did recruit the wonderful presenter who was at the last coordinating board meeting to join that committee, the star faculty member from the community college. So we're on our way with that. Thanks for the opportunity, and I guess any of us would entertain any questions.
You had something. Go. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I feel like applauding. Yeah, good. I really just have comments and then maybe one suggestion. First of all, I am thrilled with these standards, and I think they are so badly needed and long overdue, and I really applaud and commend you. And I am especially excited about the cross-disciplinary standards. Now, Evie Height and I go back to the 70s. We were only 12 at the time, and have been talking about interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and it's just a thrill to see this in print. And so I'm just so excited about that. And it did occur to me, I mean, I think you mentioned this, how these are actually also work readiness skills, life readiness skills. I love a couple of these. Those of you that may not have it, accept constructive criticism and revise personal views when valid. I mean, I think we could all do well with that. Construct well-reasoned arguments to explain phenomena, validate conjecture, and support positions. Those kinds of things that we actually are thinking about teaching. Those kinds of things is very, very exciting. I also like all of the recommendations. They are spot on. The one caution I would have is the language about teachers need to teach students, not content. I would worry about that being misleading, and maybe the language could be rethought, because you did say later that we have to blend content and pedagogy, and we don't want to go back to the days when you would walk in a classroom and hear the teachers say, okay, put your math away, now we're going to do higher order thinking skills. So that divorcing of the strategies and the concepts from the content, I would worry deeply about that message being misconstrued.
I think there's a better way to phrase that.
Yeah.
I think my intent was clear.
I did get your intent very, very clearly.
Quite well taken.
Thank you. Anyway, just kudos to all of you for just incredible work, well done, and the rigorous assignments, how to. I cannot tell you what a uphill climb that is for us in the system right now. And this has been the case for several years. So I'll give you a quick example. In another district, certainly not Fort Worth ISD, in another district we had all the principals in the district bring a sample of rigorous student writing. Took the names off, put them all over the table, and asked the people there, the educators there, pick the 4th grade writing sample and the 12th grade writing sample. Couldn't do it. So how to judge those things is a skill in and of itself. So anyway, kudos.
Yeah, a little story. The new president of University of Houston apparently got her provost and high-level people together and brought in assignments from students and asked them what grade would they give these assignments. And when their responses didn't correspond with her level of expectation, that's how she set the bar of what was expected. So it's applicable both to K-12 and to higher ed. And so I was impressed that the new University of Houston president, whose name I can't pronounce yet.
Couture.
Couture, that's right. And Robert, the Illinois actually, I think, has developed social and emotional learning standards. And it's just interesting to see a few states having a parallel construct to look at some of the things that you're talking about in terms of being able to take constructive feedback. I haven't looked at them to know what's in them, but have just discovered last week that they do exist.
I would just add, that this document is the result of a lot of work. Vertical teams commissioned for a College Ready Texas, staff from both coordinating board and TEA, And the only thing I keep waiting on is the collateral attack from someone smarter than everybody else here that says, I know better. And, I just keep waiting for that day to come, and it hasn't come yet, so maybe that's a good sign.
Robert, I think that's what happens when you have good collaboration between the K-12 and the higher ed systems. And I think that a lot of the things we went through are what we're going to see take place on the P-16 level. I can't say it was always smooth sailing. But we learned a lot, and I think that we have mutual respect for one another. And I think it was a wonderful process, and I think that commendations go to the commissioners for understanding that this was going to take time, that it was going to take a lot of work together. And I thank you both. I also wanted to just comment on something Melody said, that we've worked together for just a long time. I think we can let it continue. We really started working together closely when we were working on the Carnegie Middle School project. And I think one of the things that Marina brought up is both cause for concern, but I think it's been that way for some time, that the middle school issue is one that we really focus on. And I think that when we talk about the standards, we typically talk about high school. And it would be better if we could set our minds to make certain that we're including middle school, because that's where we are losing a lot of the students and where expectations seem to climb for our students.
Absolutely. You saw it actually on that chart from South Carolina, clear as a bell.
Let me add to the comments that were from the group, the committee, how much we thank you for your efforts and for doing this. This is very important work, and we appreciate what you've done. And I know you mentioned that you've done some evaluation of buy-in and acceptance. But what do you think we'll get or feel from the grassroots instructors, the teachers, the people who we haven't examined so far? And I know, across the board, do you think you'll get the buy-in? And as a follow-up, what can we do to help you with that, to enhance that acceptance of these standards?
You want to start?
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing now, and I didn't mention it before because I know you've got a long agenda, but we are doing some research now on sort of a validation study of the standards against what's actually taught in entry-level college courses. And when that study is complete, we're going to be putting exemplar courses up on the web so people can see what entry-level syllabus should look like, what some college assignments should look like, and what student responses to those assignments look like, so that people have an idea really of what we're talking about. But I think really a lot of what's going to have to happen at the higher ed level is institutions have got, I think we'll see that it is to their advantage to be supporting college readiness standards and high expectations, because retention rates will be increasing, because their students will have greater graduation. You'll have greater graduation rates, so that it's, and I try not to use expressions like this, but it's a win-win situation where the better the students are doing, the better the institutions are going to be doing. And the only way that public ed is going to do as well as it can is if they receive real support and assistance from higher ed. And the only way higher ed's going to do better is if they learn about a lot of the support systems that public ed has put in place to help students who are in need. So I think you're going to see just a whole lot more collaboration that will build the support that we want.
You mentioned middle schools really quickly, and as the father of an 8th grade daughter, there are days I think that boarding school is a good concept that might show some success, so keep that in mind.
We did looked at all the feedback from among the UT institutions, and there's variation between UT Austin and UT Brownsville and some of the other institutions across the state in terms of whether they thought the level of rigor stated in the standards was appropriate. But one thing you can do help is within the whole community college world is to help promote that level of rigor is necessary. And then at some point we need to work to solve the challenges with developmental education in that whole arena. So we're going to need a lot of help with looking at new and different ways to should the students not be ready by the time they graduate from high school? And what do we do next?
Please know we are looking for ideas in that arena, very much. So we realize that is a problem.
Yeah.
If we do this right, this will change all of our lives. It will make, we will have students that are better prepared to go into the workforce, since we're defining college readiness and workforce readiness as the same thing. It will decrease the need for developmental education and higher ed at both the community college and university level. We expect that we will align curricula in K through 12 with college readiness, and we will do post alignment. This will change, as Evie pointed out, this will change the nature of instruction and learning in higher education as well. This isn't strictly a K through 12 mandate. This is something that affects all of us. And I think one of the things we need to do quickly, Marina, is think about ways that we start talking to deans of schools of education and start talking about not only in the UT system but beyond, and how we get deans on board and supportive of college readiness, and get more teachers prepared to teach at this level of rigor. We have to work with those who have alternative certification programs, because we need to reach those new teachers as well. So we eagerly await the recommendations of your committee to move the college readiness standards forward. Let me make a point about where we go from here. Commissioner Scott and I participated in a meeting yesterday that Senator Florence Shapiro convened. As most of you know, she's the chair of the Senate Education Committee. That meeting also included Representative Eisler, who's chair of the House Public Education Committee, and Chair McElroy of the State Board of Education was also at the meeting. And the point of the meeting was to talk about, now that the coordinating board has adopted these college readiness standards, what's next? And the meeting went extremely well. The next step is we are going to transmit the standards to Commissioner Scott for his approval. There was a consensus at the meeting that we recognize that the standards are not in final form, that Commissioner Scott may well recommend some tweaking to what we transmit to him. We agreed that we will consult with one another about any recommended adjustments, and then they will go to the State Board of Education, and the State Board of Education might have some ideas about how to tweak the standards, but there was a consensus that the standards would be pretty much adopted in their present form. The one issue about, and I want to make sure that members of the council understand this, and that people in the audience do as well. The one recommendation that I readily accepted was the standards are divided into 4 sections. And if you have the copies of the standards in front of you, you'll notice that the standards have 4 levels of readiness described. The highest level is the broad concept that's marked by Roman numeral, and then you have an uppercase letter which has a second level of conceptualization, and then the third level it's marked with the cardinal number, and then you have lowercase letters, and those are the performance indicators. In the strictest terms, those are not part of the standards. Those are simply examples of how the standards can be taught or can be met. And the recommendation from Commissioner Scott and from Chairman McElroy was to submit the performance indicators in a separate document. So I I have spoken to the chair of the coordinating board, Robert Shepard, and we are going to present to the coordinating board. We'll have to figure out how we do this, whether we have to call a special meeting or whatever. But I am going to recommend to the coordinating board that we do exactly what was proposed to us. That the standards that we submit to Commissioner Scott and then ultimately to the State Board of Education will be the first 3 levels of standards. And that will be the primary document. And then as an attachment, we will provide essentially this document with the performance indicators included. We think that will provide both the Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Scott, and the State Board of Education ample flexibility in determining how they wish to teach the standards. And at the same time, they will have available to them the hard and thoughtful work of the vertical teams and others in suggestions about how the standards can actually be taught with illustrations from curricula that in the different disciplines. And so I've talked to Chairman Shepard about that, and he is going to move quickly to address this issue. I have no reason to believe that the coordinating board will not accept the recommendation of Commissioner Scott and the chair of the State Board of Education. We will do that. But we think we have a good starting point. We have a good definition or collective definition of college readiness. And the other thing that there was consensus around, and this gets back to one of the points in one of your slides, Marina. The 3 of us, well, actually the 5 of us, Chairman Shapiro and Chairman Eisler, as well as the 2 commissioners and the chair of the State Board of Education, we believe in our kids. Mm-hmm. We believe that our kids can meet these standards. Kids all over the world are meeting these standards. Certainly American kids can as well. Mm-hmm. And we will set higher expectations for our children, and we will give them the assistance they need to meet those standards. We know that standards absent the academic support necessary to achieve at a higher level don't mean very much. So but we're committed to moving ahead aggressively and helping our students graduate from our high schools, our community colleges, and our universities ready to compete globally in the so-called flat world. I prefer the term a level world, but beat me to the punch.
Quick responses while I have the mic, and I promise I'll give it up. In going through this process and looking at the Massachusetts standards, one of the great things about them was some exemplars that helps teachers to know what rigor of assignment to shoot for. Yeah. So however the state board ends up, whatever they do with the performance indicators, they have real value.
I definitely agree. I think just from their perspective, that kind of global document is what they're looking for when they build their curriculum. And I think as you know from the session, they're somewhat territorial about their curriculum authority. I think they want to look at that global document and build their curriculum off of it.
Okay. And to Cesar, the business community's impact on keeping these college readiness standards high is important, because the global reality, if you talk to Russian professors, we have a couple in the UT system, they'll say very candidly that U.S. students are 2 years behind in mathematics. I mean, the curriculum is 2 years behind what Russian students are going through. So we need to maintain that rigor that's in these standards.
Well, our mantra at the coordinating board from the very beginning was we were willing to adjust and to compromise on a number of issues, but not on rigor.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, make a couple of points on the Russian issue. Up until recently, their factories were run without having to make a profit. So they're still struggling, trying to figure out how to make a profit. So we have some time to catch up. Not a whole lot of time.
Excellent point.
And to echo Dr. Johnson's comment on the cross-disciplinary issue, after 125 years, we finally have the College of Engineering and the College of Agriculture at A&M talking to each other. So that's a good sign. If they can do it, if they can do it, we can do it. And the alignment that Commissioner Scott talked about as being critical, it definitely is, but we need to take it to the next level, and the next round is alignment with the clusters that have been identified in the Competitiveness Council and what Governor Perry has had us looking at from the business side. This group, this is a perpetual trip. You're never going to get to the end. As soon as you get this one sealed and delivered, we start working on the next one. And your slides were interesting in that the first one and the last one to me were linked. It's a great vision, but to accomplish it, you're going to have to get into the quantum physics and get people moving as fast as those molecules do in order to get that vision become a reality. But I have all the confidence in what you presented that we're off to a very good start.
An excellent start.
I haven't said this to him privately, but I will propose to Commissioner Scott publicly that he and I make a presentation to the Governor's Competitiveness Council on the college, present to them on the college readiness standards, because these standards represent the very foundation of the Governor's goals of economic competitiveness. Because economic competitiveness begins with educational achievement. I have the E3 Alliance little pamphlet right in front of me, and of course the very foundational notion of this is education equals economics. So
Very true. Yeah.
we're going on from there. We're very excited. I think you can tell that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why don't? Yeah. Although we do have. We have a quorum. Okay. Let's turn to agenda item 5. We're going to have a report from regional P-16 councils. You'll recall that at our last meeting, council members requested that regional P-16 councils present information about your particular initiatives going on in your respective regions, and we have 3 councils today that will share information about the work being done in the regions. Before we get started, would you please introduce yourselves and the councils that you represent?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and we really welcome the opportunity to be here. My name is Kathy Coker. I'm employed with Texas A&M Texarkana. I am the coordinator for the P-16 initiatives on campus as well as an instructor. And to my right is Ronnie, or to my left is Ronnie Thompson, and I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Ronnie Thompson. I'm an assistant superintendent for Texarkana Independent School District in Texarkana, Texas.
And I'm Kay Odell, the Executive Director of Workforce Solutions in Northeast Texas.
And we are 3 of the council members from our council that are here today. So we have many more members that are not present, but the 3 of us are here today.
You might be amused to know that when I talk about the need for regional approaches to statewide educational issues, I often use the example. I say, I'm from El Paso. I was born and raised in El Paso, and it's not hard to imagine that El Paso would have very different ways of approaching challenges than, say, Texarkana would.
That is so true.
Because although both cities are in the same state, I'd like to point out that El Paso is closer to Los Angeles than it is to Texarkana.
So true. Texarkana's not close to much.
We just wanted to share an initiative, a P-16 initiative that we began in Texarkana with math, science, and engineering. And hopefully through this presentation you'll be able to see that I think we're hopefully going to answer a lot of the questions and concerns that were there from the other members I think that were up here presenting, and they all had great presentations, and I applaud them for moving us along as a state with P-16. We opened up the Martha and Josh Morris Mathematics and Engineering Elementary School. It's a K through 5 campus where we have pods, 3 different pods, a K and 1 pod, 2 and 3 pod, and a 4 and 5 pod. Approximately 400 students in the school. But the amazing thing is that it's an inquiry-based learning instruction going on, a lot of integrated lessons across the curriculum. And then what we've done is we've built in what we call engineering encounters, which is also something unique to the campus. But each 6 weeks, across each grade level, there may be a theme, a strand of engineering that's taught. And the students then are taught through an engineering process. So they go through a phase of imagine, design, then they build their product, then they test that product, and then they redesign that product. Always working in groups and always presenting to their peers when they're done, because we found that's a key component when we were talking to engineers, and I think I heard that echoed several times up here, that presentation skills and being able to look somebody in the eye and tell them what you're doing and articulate what you're doing and not being afraid to fail at the same time is a very powerful tool that these students need socially. So we've incorporated that into the curriculum at the Morris Elementary School. Architecturally, the school is, you almost have to come down and see it, and we would like to go ahead and invite you now to come down and see it whenever you have an opportunity. But architecturally, when we began to build the school, since we knew the type of curriculum that we were dealing with, we began to design the school around the curriculum. So you'll see several clear panels throughout the school going into each pod, in the floor, so you can see what's underneath the concrete, in the walls, so you can see what's in the walls, and in the ceilings. Everything is labeled clearly, so the students don't just think that water magically appears in the bathroom or the electrical automatically comes through the outlet. They can actually see that there's a system or a process to get that technique there. We also put clear cases on some of our computers that the students use, even the cabling, and I know from an IT standpoint, when we asked them to show the server and all the cabling that goes through, they just about had a fit. They said, "You want to do what? That's going to be ugly." So convincing them that it's part of the learning process was truly amazing, but it really is neat because the kids are excited every day they go to school, and it really builds that inquiry-based learning aspect with the students. What prompted us to start the engineering program? Of course, nationally, there was a gap in the supply and demand for professional engineers. The federal priority of STEM, and then our local regional needs, talking to the businesses and the communities and the industry in the area. There was a need. We have International Paper Mills, JCM Industries, Cooper Tire, Red River Army Depot. We have several companies in the area. They all expressed the same thing. They needed more engineers, or at least students that thought like engineers, and brought that to the table with them as a workforce. Also, visiting with A&M and wanting to expand downward was a key issue as well. So then we had an immediate partner in collaborating with A&M as an expansion of a 4-year university, opening up an engineering school in Texarkana. So we definitely wanted to bridge the gap with what we were starting at the elementary level and bridge that all the way through high school and then feed the A&M system. We did then have several obstacles that we had to overcome in looking at the transition. The main was in the curriculum design and delivery portion. When we put our panel of engineers together and started asking them questions, how do you start teaching a 5-year-old about engineering? They give you blank looks at first, but they didn't really know. they've always thought of engineering starting at an upper level, or starting at least, their junior, senior year in high school, and then moving to the university level. But after a while, when the communication started flowing, of course, they said bring in puzzles, do a lot of puzzles, a lot of inquiry-based, a lot of projects. Definitely have them start presenting in front of their peers early on, because that was a critical need for engineers and what they look for when they need them in the workforce. Developing the curriculum, we looked nationwide. We're looking for an elementary curriculum dealing with engineering, and couldn't find one. So basically, we had to do that from scratch, using our own teachers and our own personnel, and getting them together. And through the collaboration with A&M, we had already developed a strong partnership, and we had designed a curriculum and instruction degree with the university that us as a district would pay for our teachers to go back to school and get a curriculum and instruction degree. In doing so then, since that was already in place, when we started looking at the school, we needed to also have something in place for those teachers, because we wanted them not to just be highly qualified, but very highly qualified. So staffing was an issue. We had to make sure they had the math and the science background going into the school. And by very highly qualified, then we had the teachers make a commitment that if they didn't already have their master's degree and were hired on here, that they would go back and get that master's degree, and then on top of that also get a master mathematics teacher certification in doing so. So through the curriculum instruction degree, we were able to work out their required electives to include the master mathematics teacher certification. A&M has been great in getting that approved, and we thank the Higher Education Board for recently approving that for us. And so now all that is in place, and our teachers have begun their first math course toward that master mathematics teacher certification. So that's just going to make the school that much better. The community perception, some of those things that we had to overcome. At first, when I started here in a math, science, and engineering school, you have the people that really diligently enjoy the arts up in arms for a moment, because they think, is that all you're going to teach my child? What about PE? What about the arts? What about reading? So we had to reassure the community that those things were still going to take place. It's just through a different lens that they take place. It's through an engineering lens. So it was really a challenge to overcome that. But now that the school is up and operating, and we just opened this fall, so this is our first group of students in the school. We've been very pleased, and the community has been very supportive of what we've done so far. The other obstacle, will the students be there? Initially we had planned to be full in 3 years. And I can tell you, from the time we opened our doors, we were full with waiting list at every grade level. So it was amazing, the community support, and it really showed the need for this type of school in the Texarkana area. The P-16's role, as a council there in Texarkana, informally, we've kind of had a P-16 council developed for many years. Our superintendent that we had, Dr. Larry Sullivan, who is now our city manager. So there is life after being a superintendent. I was kind of surprised, but that really he was a visionary, and really when he came to town and started with Texarkana ISD, he formed those relationships with the higher education folks, with the city, and it was just informal over lunch, over dinners, and just began talking. What can we do together, etc. And that's how we started leading to the joint ventures that were in Texarkana today, and them pushing us as leaders to say, okay, this is what we want to do. How are we going to make it work? And then, then that got a little more technical as time went on, and very challenging, but they were always there. And then when you complete it, then they say, okay, what's next? And so they've been great visionary leaders, and now that Dr. Sullivan is with the city, that just makes it a lot more another piece to the puzzle, I guess, for collaboration for us at Texarkana. Because even building a school, you need roads to get to that school, etc., and those are usually done by the city. So that really helps, having that piece in place there as well. So forming relationships is a critical aspect of the P-16 Council in Texarkana. The formal council, actually we have a formal council now that we formed in 06-07, and we're going to continue to grow that council and add more members to that as we go along. You know, it started out small, just one school district and the college and the community college. We've since added, we're going to add other school districts in the surrounding area and begin to bridge that, and probably even look at crossing state line into Arkansas and bringing in a joint venture and going with another state on some other ventures that we might look at as well. Systematic changes that have been made have just been incredible. We've always taken the position that if we find something that works and it works for the kids, then let's duplicate it at another school as well. So we're looking at the instructional delivery process that we were able to do at this school, and our next step is to train another campus, another group of teachers, and how to deliver that instruction, because we've given them the freedom to go outside the box and to teach you know, in a different way, I guess you might say, than what they're used to, not the drill and kill concept of worksheets to make sure they're ready for the state accountability. We wanted to go above and beyond that. At the same time, we had done a lot of work with horizontal and vertical alignment with our curriculum. Our mobility rate's high in the Texarkana area, students swapping school to school. So we wanted to make sure that we stayed curriculum mapping-wise about in the same area, so if a student did choose to leave Morris Elementary and go to another school, there still were no gaps in the curriculum as far as the content that was covered up to that point. So with that framework in mind, they still had to incorporate the map that was in place, but then go above and beyond that, and it's really working so far. And you know, I hope when we can come back later and report our tax scores, and it'll be an exemplary school, and they'll be high, especially in the math and science areas. I'll let Kay real quick talk a little bit about the economic impact.
Good afternoon. I'm really glad that y'all made Larry Temple stay home. I want to talk a little bit about some of the concepts that were discussed here today. The groups that went prior to us talked about idea and technology creation, and this school really is where we need to start. We've heard from employers all along, when you get to high school, it's too late. You need to get them when they're young, their mind is bright, they're still creative, and you need to encourage them to continue doing that. Well, when a 5-year-old takes a project, an old concept, and makes it newer, faster, and better, and continues to do that all through school, we're going to develop a workforce that is going to be very strong for our region. Currently, we're facing a workforce that is ready to retire. About 40% of some of the industries that are critical to our economic region are facing retirement in the next 5 to 7 years of about 40% of their workforce. Specifically, we're talking about electric power generation and manufacturing and advanced manufacturing. That it's a critical need there. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to start and start building that workforce and replacing that knowledge that is walking out the door very soon. The Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates that there was tremendous growth in electric power generation and manufacturing in our specific region, Northeast Texas. In 2007, Texas was the only state in the nation showing job growth in the manufacturing industry, the only one in the nation. We added jobs when no one else did. The Northeast Texas region has the highest concentration of manufacturing in the state, and in 2007, Texarkana experienced a 28.57% growth in gross metropolitan product, much of which was due to these critical industries in our area. The number one challenge that was identified by manufacturers at the Northeast Texas Manufacturing Summit was promoting the industry and attracting and preparing workers to high-tech manufacturing jobs such as engineers, process technicians, and mechanical engineering technicians. And the impact of this program is tremendously important, and it shows great promise to us retaining those very critical industries in our area, and not only retaining the ones that we have, as we all know that job growth happens more through retention than it does through attraction, but it will also create a workforce that will bring other manufacturing industries and those that are rich in high-tech jobs into the area. So we're very proud to be a part of this council, and I'm really impressed with this program. Congressman Hall has been to visit, and he has sung its praises, and we certainly hope that you will someday come and take a look at it as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I got a couple more minutes to add a couple of other things.
Can we're running a little late, so could you make it brief?
I will. I just wanted to touch on one thing real quick. Is at the school we have purposely accelerated the math. Talking to the university professor who's now teaching 2 concurrent enrollment classes at our high school, these students need to be ready by calculus by 11th grade. So we purposely looked and mapped out, starting at 3rd grade, how can we accelerate the text so that student takes calculus in the 11th grade and then is ready to take those dual credit classes and move on. So that's been a good area there.
We'll be watching how the kind of progress you're making on that issue, because clearly we need to accelerate students in a lot of areas. You made, I forget which one of you made the comment about that the recommendation from the business community that you work with kids while they're really young and still, quote, creative. That's scary.
That's something that was told to me by a couple of business owners that actually are school board members, and they say there comes a point where about junior high or high school, or that students are not encouraged to be creative anymore, and that was the point that they were making. Let's get them while they're still creative and keep encouraging that all through their education.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out, you're going to force the business community to start recruiting way earlier than we are today.
Well, one of our chamber members, it's been good for them to be involved also in our initiative, because when businesses do come to town and look at our area and they say, you know, what educational base can you provide us? And now the comment is, what skills do you need? And we'll make it happen. So then, because of the collaboration, they're telling them, you know, we can start this at elementary school and start feeding you a workforce. And that's what it's all about, is that collaboration to make that happen.
Thank you very much. I have a simple recommendation that any school district or school that's interested in being more successful in the teaching of science and both basic and applied, that everybody take a field trip to the Exploratorium in San Francisco. Some people that have been there, I see their heads nodding. That is the most remarkable place I've ever been, because they have got kids in that place from every conceivable background, rich, poor, white, Latino, African American, Asian, and they have kids of all ages doing incredible science. And it's everything they do is premised on the notion that children are creative and that children learn best, particularly science, by doing science. And I mean, it's just incredible to go there. We're running late, but I can tell you about an extraordinary lesson I saw in physics and other parts of science, where they had kids that were building race cars out of those, what do you call those? What are those? Legos. Lego cars, and they had a sail, and they had this huge industrial-sized fan beneath this. It looked like a shuffleboard table, and these kids were racing cars down the table, and they had to learn about the mass, the size of the sail. They had to learn about the aerodynamic characteristics of the car, the weight of the car. It was really extraordinary. These were 4- and 5-year-old kids that were learning physics and other types of science. So it can be done. And we should worry about somehow wringing the creativity out of our kids, because they are creative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a group from North Texas. Because we are running late, if you could confine your comments to no more than 10 minutes.
Minutes, we promise. I'm Denise Johnson. I'm coordinator of the North Texas Regional P-16 Council. Our council has been in operation.
Do you mind pulling the microphone a little closer?
I'm Denise Johnson, coordinator of the North Texas Regional P-16 Council. Our council has been in operation since 2002, and we currently have 40 members across the Metroplex region, representing Collin, Dallas, Denton, and Tarrant counties. And this afternoon, I'm going to introduce two members of our P-16 Council who are going to tell you about initiatives with which they are involved. Cynthia Fisher-Miller is the Senior Director of Workforce Development for the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, and she's going to be talking about the Quality Workforce Development Committee. Dr. Barbara Bush is a faculty member at the University of North Texas in Counseling and Higher Education, and she is principal investigator for a $1.8 million grant from the Texas from the Texas High School Project in the Communities Foundation of Texas. And the project she's going to be talking about is the Early College High School Initiative. Cynthia?
Okay. Thank you very much. I am happy to be here on behalf of the Chamber and representing the business community. We have, well, let me get this. Can I pick it up?
It's working.
Okay, it's all right. We are very pleased to be on the North Texas Regional Council, and we are also involved and represented on the Western Metroplex P-16 Council, coordinated by Weatherford College. We've been longtime members of the UT Arlington Metroplex P-16 Council, and also through Texas Women's University, the Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board funds one of the state's P-16 field specialists whose office is at the Fort Worth Chamber. She operates as a member of our chamber team and manages development of GO centers throughout the 10 North Texas counties she's responsible for in Region 11. These collaborations demonstrate our firm commitment to working regionally to close the gaps by 2015. We have all heard about the looming labor shortage heralded in any number of demographic projections. And for this group in particular, I'm not going to cite statistics that we all know to make that case yet again. We are looking at a shortage of unparalleled proportions, and we have to find and develop every single bit of talent available. Talent is not based on income, race, gender, ethnicity, or any other factor other than raw talent. And we have no time to waste because, as has already been said today, global competition has never been greater. But P-16 is not a competitive sport. Change is only going to come about through long-term collaboration and relationships that are built on mutual trust. We have to learn to understand and respect the differing cultural norms of business, education, and the public sector if we're going to work together effectively and produce meaningful results. And these relationships of trust must include not only individuals but the systems they represent, because what we're about is bona fide, long-term, systemic excellence, transcending the contribution of dynamic individuals and going beyond anecdotal best practices. This is how our Quality Workforce Committee at the Chamber is structured. We've selected, and they are appointed, individuals who, one, have the ability to be two things: a voice of their organization and a bridge back to their organization. And secondly, they need to have a passion for the subject matter. We just don't take anyone. They have to be the right fit. The committee's action plan is in your materials, and I'd like to mention that we are thrilled that we have great attendance with education. I believe we've got all the higher ed institutions in the region represented. Business, the major large businesses as well as some smaller businesses, workforce solutions and other public sector as well as community leaders. We place continuing strong emphasis on P-16, and you'll see it on the first page of the action plan. It's a separate bullet, in fact. All of the North Texas P-16 and K-16 councils have participated in the committee as presenters and or members. And when presentations are brought, the way we work is not just hear a presentation and leave. We look at what can we do, we have dialogue, and then we report to the chamber board on how we're doing with the action plan. This is a standing committee of our board. Being business-led, one of the major concerns the committee always addresses is workforce supply. It is a deal maker or a deal breaker when chambers and cities negotiate with companies considering relocation to our great state of Texas. But the companies want a prepared workforce today, instantly, when they arrive, and as we know, growing that workforce is a long-term proposition. That can be a tough sell. Much of the Quality Workforce Committee's action plan addresses the workforce supply issue, as in the third bullet on the first page, and I'm happy to hear that clusters have already been mentioned a lot. We're big on those. Aerospace, semiconductor, healthcare, logistics, and whatever else is needed to drive the economic engine of our region. In fact, we have a leadership council that was formed in '02, predating the governor's initiative. It has 3 chambers, 3 workforce boards, 16 county area, and it develops strategic regional approaches to growing workforce supply. On the next page of the plan, on the first bullet, you'll see we specifically address underserved populations. We also, through a coalition of the 8 largest chambers known as the Metro 8, can weigh in on workforce and education issues that may need to be addressed through public policy, advocacy, or change. And an example might be creating greater incentives for shared accountability between the segments of the P-16 pipeline. Another issue is the dire need for teacher preparation, especially in the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's a huge workforce supply issue. As I mentioned, we have a lot of dialogue, and that is by design. We want in this committee and in our P-16 councils, which I'm representing today, to achieve that cross-cultural understanding and mutual trust, and begin to forge solutions to the identified issues. One of the big themes that's already come up earlier today is the need for students to get real-world exposures so they can be both college and work-ready. College-ready and work-ready are 2 sides of the same coin, and that figurative coin is the currency of success. We need academic achievement, critical thinking skills, communication, interpersonal skills, for sure multicultural competency, self-discipline, persistence, time management, all of this for students to be successful in post-secondary education, in work, and in life. And so briefly concluding, I must assure you that the business community now more than ever understands what we mean by P-16. They all understand that. We don't have to explain that. It's absolutely imperative to produce the workforce supply they want and that we all need for our economic growth, prosperity, and, frankly, survival. And if we can have dialogue and build trust over time, we can go deeper into how business can offer help that is needed and wanted. Not slap a template on it and say, this is it, we're done, but actually work with education and how education can receive it. Those 2 pieces. The human resources are every bit as important as the financial resources, if not more so. We have to tear down walls and build bridges in their place. True partnership requires give and take, and for sure, staying the course. Thank you.
The early college high school, I think many of you know about the concept, and so I won't go into great detail, but I just want to say that preparing students who have been underrepresented in higher education by starting early, and actually the early college high school, having these students on a college campus, starting so that they can get a high school diploma and college experience up to 60 hours of college credit is a unique way of doing this. And I want to say that I believe that the early college high school is a daily exercise of P-16 collaboration. And I say that that is why it's so important that our North Texas Regional P-16 Council is at least supportive of what we have done. And many of you will know that it is not an easy process, and there are challenges to P-16 collaboration, and we see that through working together with the Early College High School. The P-16 Council, North Texas Regional P-16 Council, has been involved in two ways initially, and that was the inspiration. Through one of our committees, dual credit concurrent enrollment, we explored the possibilities and found an early college high school model to be the ultimate dual credit experience. And so we pursued that, and there was the support there. And also, the North Texas Early College Consortium has as its base and its membership the partnership of the P-16 Council. Ways in which the P-16 Council remains involved, first of all, with periodic reports from not only the Texas High School Project as to what's going on across the state, but also from the early colleges. And in the area we have two now, one of which is in the Dallas ISD district that has been shown to be an exemplary institution, and we have a third one starting. So we give regular reports on these early college high schools as well as the partnership. And also the project director of Early College High School is a member of the P-16 Council. The results have been the early success that we have seen. We have two early college high schools in their second year. I mentioned one of them has been rated as exemplary, and we have a third one, which we expect to open in fall of 2008 with the a partnership of Cedar Valley College and also the Dallas Independent School District. So my closing remark in that is to say that if you want to look at an exercise of collaboration and partnership, all the rewards and challenges that could make with K-12 and higher education, explore the concepts involved with the early college high school.
I'm going to skip my concluding remarks in the interest of time, but I do have just two recommendations for other P-16 councils. The first recommendation would be that P-16 councils seek external funding for projects and initiatives that they want to start. And we have found some funding sources that have been helpful with that. The second recommendation with regard to business partnerships is to really define, along with business partners, what the role of business partners and business and education partners is. The paradigm has shifted, and it's not just a one-way street where businesses, provide a playground for a school, for example. The relationship goes much deeper now, and it is a two-way street that benefits both entities. And so I'd just like to share those recommendations.
Thank you. Those are good recommendations. Obviously, the early college high school model is something we're watching very closely all over the state, and it sounds like you're off to a very good start. Any questions or comments from members of the council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, you can, members of the council, as our next group comes up, once again, notice that there is a variety of approaches being taken by these local P-16 councils, but notice that there is an alignment between business, economic interests on one end and educational interests on the other.
Absolutely. Nice segue. Thank you, Dr. Paredes. My name is Susan Dawson. I am the president and executive director of what's called the E3 Alliance for Education Equals Economics, which is the Central Texas P-16 Council.
And I'm Earl Maxwell, the CEO of the St. David's Community Health Foundation in Austin.
And we're going to kind of tag team on this. We'll try to go through quickly. I know we're already behind schedule. We wanted to talk just briefly to give a background on how we're doing things in the E3 Alliance here in Central Texas, and then Earl is going to provide a particular case study in one of the ways that we're trying to align our efforts with business need and industry need. So what is the E3 Alliance? The E3 Alliance, we consider ourselves a catalyst for change. We're trying to create the correct model to undertake systemic change in this region, and also, as we can, not only learn from other regions around the state and the country, but replicate what works and figure out how to spread it out and make it better. History, the E3 Alliance was born out of a business and community leader discussion that had really gone on for many years and then started to heat up in 2005 out of Austin Area Research Organization, which, if you're not familiar here in the Central Texas area, the probably closest parallel would be the Dallas Citizens Council. But it's a member-driven organization, mostly former chamber chairs and business leaders. So it was not designed as a P-16 council, but as we came and the state started to recognize the process of these kinds of alignments for systemic change, we represented that body for Central Texas. But we consider it pre-P and post-16, certainly birth to a definition of what do we think is required for economic prosperity. We intentionally looked at models from El Paso, Cincinnati, Boston, all around, everything that we could steal as lessons learned of models that we could use. And we also looked at other models of infrastructure. Where had we used regional frameworks for better transportation planning, for air quality, for other kinds of complex infrastructure issues that spanned artificial boundaries? Could we apply those lessons learned in the educational space? We are housed at the Austin Community College District, and we formally launched in May of 2006. The three founding partners are Austin Area Research Organization, ACC, and the University of Texas. We put together our board of directors, and we are a standalone 501c3. We put together our board of directors, again, thinking what would we want it to be replicable. We've got to have the CEO of United Way to get outreach to communities. We've got to have the president of the Austin Community College System. We've got to have president of Regional College, a superintendent, 3 CEOs. Marina Walm here in the audience is on our board. So tried to put together what we thought would be the leaders that could sustain us for systemic change. It's easy to light fires. It's harder to keep them going. Then we have outreach into those communities, including the seven institutions of higher education, traditional institutions that are located here in Central Texas. All of them pay a membership fee and are active meetings of all of our college presidents to come to the table. We have, of our 35 school districts in Central Texas, it's not working, 7 that we've chosen as target partner districts that we purposely pulled as rich-poor, urban, suburban, rural, fast-growing, static, etc., and then through organizations that we work with, including chamber and economic development business leaders. Lots of deliverables that we've worked on to try to create this groundswell and tipping point for change. You were looking at that pamphlet. That's just one example, as we think that one of the key leverage points is getting really effective school board members that can help us establish policy and support active change through superintendents. So one of the deliverables is a qualifications for school board trustees that we put together with Arrow and with 25 other organizations from around the region, but many other white papers, standards, etc. The model for change that we have adopted in a simplified fashion has 3 tracks. The first is providing objective information that our communities can take action on. The second is engaging those communities. And if you talk to, for instance, Gates Foundation and many others who have tried to undertake large-scale education reform without sufficient community buy-in, we've seen it often stagnate or just become reversed. And then leading to what we call our blueprint for change for systemic alignment. I'm going to go quickly and not really talk about any of the data itself, but just give you some examples of data that we have compiled working with the coordinating board as a partner with TEA, with individual researchers that we've brought on board to try to take information and put it in the hands of communities so we can make decisions. A lot of work on early childhood. Where is it? What is it? Do we have access in the right places to the right students? We've looked quite a bit at education achievement gaps. This is an example looking district by district at the gaps between our Anglo students and our African American and Hispanic students and why they're very different between different school districts in the region. We look at where teachers are assigned, and not surprisingly, although the numbers itself may be surprised, if you look across the region, we have vastly higher numbers of teachers assigned in critical courses like math and science courses, out of field, out of subject, at our poorest schools. We look at closing the gaps data. So this is basically taking the college participation, closing the gaps goal, brought it home to Central Texas, and we're charting how fast are we closing that gap, or are we? And that green line in the middle that you can see there says, well, we're making a little progress, but not nearly enough. We're looking at where are our students going. Are they going through a community college system? Are they going to 4 years? What are the enrollment rates? What are the enrollment patterns? What's the capacity? If we close the gaps, do we have any place to put them? We're doing a lot of work, and this is a good example of working with the coordinating board of saying it's not enough to see, do our students go to college, district by district, how successful are they? After 6 years, were they granted a degree, associate's, baccalaureate? And we've done a significant amount of statistical analysis, regression analysis, mapping that versus economic development, background of districts, things like that. And finally, what I'll talk to is that other end of the spectrum of lining up to business. We've looked at that Central Texas student population and all the degrees granted and saying, okay, do they match what our industries need? Do they match our critical health sciences, our engineering, our computer science, math, places where we're out there recruiting companies? And the answer is no. In fact, far fewer than 10% of the degrees that we granted in the last cycle to Central Texas students had anything to do with the industries that we're recruiting here to Central Texas. Just very quickly on the community engagement side and actively getting out and creating that buy-in and hearing the voice of the community, we looked at what we could do in terms of media and blogs and newsletters and outreach and presentations like this, and sort of mapped them on a chart and said we're not getting either the breadth or the depth that we would need to create a tipping point for change. So we've undertaken two major campaigns in terms of community outreach that I'll talk quickly about to try to reach both that depth and breadth. The first is a partnership with the Kettering Foundation, nationally, and a number of other local partners that we have branded Too Many Children Left Behind, Closing the Education Gaps in Central Texas. What we did was we spent a year-long effort in 6 communities around Central Texas, Bastrop, Brown Rock, San Marcos, Central Austin, etc., and did a localized planning process and brought together hundreds of people, 600 people across the region to participate, not in a town hall meeting, but in a series of hours and hours of intense dialogues of saying, what are the achievement gaps, what's the data behind it, how does that impact us as a community, and what are our options for changing things? And had people, parents, deans of schools of education, dropouts who had their kids in the school system today, educators, business leaders with no kids who cared about the outcomes, all sitting together, brainstorming, working through a process of doing that. Then came together in November and rolled up all of those individual action plans of communities into a regional set of messages that would lead into our, what we call our blueprint for change, our strategic plan. The second one is the breadth, and the breadth message, if you will, is trying to really create that tie. If you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of need, that tie for those who need to say the why. How do we tie education equals prosperity in the minds of every parent, every student, every leader in Central Texas? So we put together a campaign that's really just formally launching this month. It's called Piercing the Cultural Bubble, and it has 3 very simple messages. If you graduate high school, it's worth an average of $1 million to you over the course of your career. You graduate college, it's worth another $1 million to you. You speak 2 languages, you're better set in the global economy. Higher opportunity, more pay. So we are putting this message out in fairs and public events, through our service agencies, on buses, every place that we can get it so that people hear and understand this message of why. I'm going to turn it over to Earl to talk about how we're moving into alignment. He'll talk about a little bit about a summit that we just had, and Dr. Paredes we were fortunate to have with us there to set the priorities for that blueprint. But in addition, we're actually working on pilot activities within the alignment area.
Which button do I push?
That one.
As you can tell, Susan's been through this 300 or more times. Now you're going to hear from a volunteer board member who's doing this for the first time, so I'll slow down. But I'm really here for 3 reasons. One, I have for many years chaired the education committee of the Austin Area Research Organization, the group from which this was born. 2, I'm here because I'm a board member of the E3 Alliance. And the 3rd is I'm CEO of St. David's Community Health Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation that owns a controlling interest in the St. David's healthcare hospitals here that are one of the 2 major healthcare systems here. And to give you an idea of how aligned we are with what Susan's talking about and how critical the nursing shortage is, or really the shortage of health science careers in general, we've really, in the past year, put our money where our mouth is. And last year, our foundation committed and invested $6 million with Texas State University to build their nursing school in Williamson County, which will break ground this year. And the other commitment we've made to this nursing alignment is with our Neil Kasurik Scholarship that was formed after his untimely death 3 years ago. We now have 22 scholars from Austin Independent School District who are pursuing health and science degrees of one sort or another. And we've made a commitment. We're adding 22 of those 4-year scholarships a year for as long as it takes to achieve our goal of having every low-income graduate from any high school within our region who wants to pursue health and the health sciences industry, that they'll have a 4-year scholarship. So we expect within 3 years to have over 100 scholars, and we'll grow that to whatever we need to. So, industry alignment, why nursing? As I've said, there's a huge demand, meets the criteria that our communities are speaking to. We have industry partners at the table. St. David's is there, Seton is there, other major players. We have the Health Industry Steering Committee, so we have the infrastructure to collaborate, and we have some funding from the workforce group. Then the purpose of the nursing articulation and alignment models is to determine the nursing education landscape in Central Texas, identify the problem areas and the barriers, explore models of nursing programs that we can borrow from other parts of the state, other parts of the country, work with the HISC and the healthcare partners on selecting and implementing optimal models, and finally work with WorkSource. This is a pretty cool graph up here. And the one advantage of having nursing as one of these alignments is that nursing has a very clear career pathway between the educational investment that we're making and the known job opportunities. And here you can see the various levels of nursing and going through that career step or that career approach and the dollars involved and so forth and so on. The next slide is also another good reason that the E3 Alliance has picked nursing as one of our early models, and that's that nursing is the fastest growing occupation in our area requiring post-secondary education. So what does that mean? Most of our people in the Central Texas region are going to UT, Austin Community College, and then Concordia and Texas State University will be opening their campuses each by 2010, adding to the capacity.
That's going to come up in a couple others. One thing to note, do it one more time, is those circles. There you go. The circles tell you the supply, the bars tell you the demand. So you can see we're putting out a tiny, tiny fraction of the nurses, trained nurses today in our region that we need.
So as we ramp up this alignment between the demand and needs, what are some of the barriers? And this next slide, the biggest one is lack of faculty and lack of nurses with master's degrees. The lack of clinical rotation space, the insufficient financial support for students leading to attrition, and that's one area that our foundation is directly going to impact in a huge way over the next 5 to 10 years. And then the lack of incentives for practitioners to continue their education because they can make more money practicing than they can teaching, even with a master's degree. And this slide shows that these are the nurse faculty versus the practitioner salary disparities. And you can see that faculty members, it's not unlike every other education area. The faculty members with a master's degree make $60,000, and a nurse practitioner with a master's degree can now make in the $60,000 to $85,000 an area. So we're going to have to do something to bridge that gap. The next slide are the deliverables. And we've prepared and developed a Central Texas Nurses Shortage Brief. We've strengthened the connection to Texas Tech Marble Falls Health Science Center. We've laid groundwork for the UTEP collaboration for bilingual student recruitment and retention. We've conducted presentations, expert panels, and discussions, and so forth. And then coming out of all of that are the recommendations from the group. And the final report is called Finding the Balance. And the specific recommendations and action steps are identified in three major areas: expand the local nursing programs, increase the nurse readiness to enter practice, and create a more seamless pipeline from high school to graduate programs.
If I can interrupt just quickly, obviously there's a whole lot more work that's shown than just what you can see here today, but there's some good examples of way that P-16 councils need to work together. For instance, in the high school today to offer pre-nursing programs, we need master's degree faculty. The Board of Nursing Examiners actually has precedence to be able to allow people to enter accelerated faculty programs where they can start with a baccalaureate degree and work towards a master's. But we need to work with the coordinating board and Board of Nurse Examiners and others to try to create that accelerated model to get more faculty out there faster.
So moving forward in 2008, we'll continue working with UT, the Board of Nursing, on a faculty acceleration model. We'll continue to push for stronger articulations between the area universities and colleges. We'll investigate a regional simulation center, and we'll involve both Seton and St. David's in that particular action item. And then we'll continue enhancing the bilingual student recruiting and retention. And with that, this is the Central Texas Education Blueprint for Change. And the thing that I will tell you about this as we wind down is that 2 weeks ago we hosted a summit for Central Texas business leaders to go through this whole process. It was a half-day summit. We had over 150 CEOs, superintendents, college presidents, and
political leaders.
It was emceed by Senator Kirk Watson, and there were over 150 people in the three significant things happened. One very significant thing is of the 150 leaders in the room, there were more business CEOs in the room than educators. And that's unusual, as you know. And the second thing is there were 150 people when it started at 8:30 in the morning, and there were 150, or very, very close to 150 people when it stopped at noon that day. And the third thing is that we developed 4 overarching goals for our region as a result of the process that Susan has described. And then we asked the 150 leaders in attendance to commit to being a committee member on one of those 4 areas. And the other amazing thing is, now I can't swear to this, but my sense is that 100% of the people in the room committed to that. And we did that in an auction format, and no one can run an auction the way our Senator Kirk Watson can. So there was a lot of peer pressure in the room, but he did not open the doors until the 150 community and business leaders had agreed to move forward. So
well, literally we made them sign their names on the wall.
And as a business person, I have been attending business education type conferences for 27 years, and I've never seen that happen before in 27 years. So that's how I'm going to close, and then Susan can say whatever she wants to say.
Any questions or comments? I've had the pleasure of having attended several of your meetings, and this is an extraordinary effort. As you can tell, it's very data-driven. A lot of research that was done before you got this thing off the ground, so that you knew exactly what your what your areas of activity would be, and you've already raised money and done some very substantial work in a very short period of time. So once again, another example of a very effective P-16 council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have an action item. You'll recall that at our last meeting there was a recommendation that we have an actual mission statement that would clearly define the relationship between the state P-16 council and regional councils. And I'd like to thank members of the council and their staffs for contributing to the development of this mission statement. You all have copies of the latest version of the mission statement. Let me read it for the record. Assuming that you approve the mission statement, I will accept a motion to do so, and then we'll take a vote. If there's any discussion, we can table this until the next meeting of the council. The state P-16 council will lead the regional P-16 councils in a collaborative effort for alignment of educational outcomes with lifelong opportunities for all Texans. The P-16 initiative will use systemic change to develop a sustainable process that maintains the identity of the state's communities while using the valuable resources of K-12 and higher education to drive economic development. The state P-16 council members and their respective organizations support the development of regional P-16 councils as a vehicle for positioning Texas as a global model for personal achievement through educational excellence. Any discussion? Yes.
I was going to make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the mission statement is adopted. Once again, thanks to all of you for your work on this. We're not going to be able to get through all of our agenda. I am going to ask, since I have a couple of members of the coordinating board staff who are going to make presentations, I'm going to ask Carlos Vermont to hold on his presentation on the license plate until our next meeting, and you have a report on the web portal in your binders, so we can hold off on a discussion of that until the next meeting. I'd like to move quickly to Barbara Nagg's presentation on the P-16. This isn't Barbara Nagg's.
Stand in. And I promise you this will be very quick. Hello, my name is Jan Lindsay, and I'm the Senior Director for College and Career Readiness Initiatives at the Texas Education Agency. As I mentioned, I'm standing in for Barbara Naggs, who is unable to be here, regrettably. I'm really pleased to provide you with this update on what's going on with the Texas High School Completion and Success Initiatives Council, which is very involved, even though they're just in the beginning stages, with very similar work to what the P-16 Council is doing. I think much of the work of the two councils, this and that council, is mutually reinforcing, and so I think it's really valuable that that the two councils know a little bit about each other and have opportunities to keep updated and collaborate with each other. As a matter of fact, I just want to mention that one of the very first documents that we gave the new council members was, in fact, the P-16 strategic plan. We felt like that would be real critical as they embarked on this journey. Could you do the slides for me? I think the picture's gone. Okay, thank you. Just real quickly, the council, the high school council, thank you, was created by the 80th Texas Legislature in House Bill 2237. Its purpose was to identify strategic priorities for and to make recommendations to improve the effectiveness, the coordination and alignment of high school completion and college and workforce efforts. So you can see real readily the intersection between the work of this new council and the work that the P-16 council is doing. The membership was statutorily defined, and the members were required to be persons who have distinguished experience in high school reform strategies and college and workforce readiness. By statute, 2 of the members are Commissioner Paredes as well as Commissioner Scott. In addition, 7 other members were appointed, including Mr. Barbic, who is head of Yes Prep Academies, Dr. Don McAdams, who's president of the Center for the Reform of School Systems, Dr. Rod Page, a familiar name, former U.S. Secretary of Education, Ms. Chris Patterson, who is a research and policy consultant in Texas, Ms. Cindy Ramos Davidson, Chief Executive Officer of the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Rosa Maria Vida, Superintendent of the Diocese of Laredo, and finally Mr. James Wyndham, who's President of the Texas Institute for Education Reform. The Council will have 2 basic deliverables. One is a strategic plan which will guide the funding for high school completion and success initiatives, and the second is a set of legislative recommendations involving high school reform efforts. Key deadlines for this council are coming fast and furious. The first is a March 15th deadline for adoption of a strategic plan to guide the grant making for FY08. Then August 31st, there will be a follow-up strategic plan to guide grant making for FY09. And finally, on October the 15th, a set of legislative recommendations. The council has set for itself a very aggressive schedule, and I'm just going to tell you real briefly what those key dates are and the focus of each meeting. But you have in your packet the work plan that was adopted by the council, so you can refer to that for more in-depth information. Just a few days ago on the 4th, the council met. It was only their 3rd time to meet, and they heard extensive testimony from grantees about the successes and challenges that they were experiencing in their efforts to improve college and workforce readiness. And these are a few of the many testifiers. We will have another meeting on the 15th, and the purpose of that will be to gain the perspective of Texas stakeholders. It will also be an opportunity for public testimony, and the council as well will be engaging in some fairly extensive discussion, preliminary discussion on what the strategic plan should look like. Followed quickly will be a meeting on Thursday, February the 21st, and the purpose of this will be to get the perspective of national experts. Monday, March the 3rd, the council will have a fairly extensive discussion on the areas of dropout prevention, college and workforce readiness, and high school reform. Then there will be a 2-day session, Monday, March the 10th, and Tuesday, March the 11th, where the plan will be discussed and adopted with public input. At that time, we plan to take a Caribbean cruise to kind of catch our breath, but quickly after that, the council will be meeting monthly in the months April through August to complete the rest of their work. Just in conclusion, I would like to invite you to attend any of these meetings. They're also being broadcast on the web for anyone who's interested in tuning in, and we would be delighted to provide any future updates to this council about the work of the High School Completion and Success Initiatives Council. Are there any questions?
I assume that the goal is to that the work of the High School Completion Success Council, that it will be presented to this council, and presumably we will be asked to distribute the information, relay it to regional P-16 councils so that there can be some regional and local response to the recommendations of the Success Council.
That is an excellent suggestion. I appreciate that, and I will definitely take that back.
And I hope that we will have the opportunity to respond to legislative recommendations as they're developed in the council.
Absolutely.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is Joni here? Joni Rufflake, did I see her? There she is. I couldn't see her.
Welcome, Joni.
Thank you, Commissioner.
My name is Joni Rethlake, and I am the State Director for Adult Education here in Texas. We're under a contract with the Texas Education Agency to administer the adult education programs throughout the state. And at the last meeting, last August, I gave you a quite lengthy presentation about adult basic education, and I'm only going to give you a few updates today. I only have 6 slides, which I've given you, and I've got 8 total. So we can do this quickly. Just reviewing what was in the Legislative Budget Board's report from 2007, that in 2005 only 19% of adult basic ed students with post-secondary intentions were reported as enrolled in post-secondary or training, which created riders, which I will get to next. And since 2001, there's been about a 75% decrease in ABE students with a post-secondary goal. Reflecting in that report, it says it reflects that there's a minimal recruiting from higher education institutions. So that's what led to the Riders 50 for the coordinating board and Riders 77 for TEA. And these new riders attached both TEA and coordinating board sections to the Appropriations Act. And the purpose is to align adult basic ed and post-secondary education. So out of funds appropriated to the coordinating board and TEA, the 2 agencies shall coordinate with each other with the end goal of developing and implementing immediate and long-range coordinated action plans that will increase the number, the success, and persistence of ABE students transitioning to post-secondary education. So that's what I'm going to report on just very quickly. We took the staff from the coordinating board and TEA took a very close look at the rider, and we've got it into 3 parts. An MOU between the 2 agencies, which has been signed. It was completed. It was submitted to the governor's office and to the Texas Workforce Investment Council on by December 31st, which was the deadline, and it was based on the findings and recommendations of the needs of the report and the action plan, and it's being implemented. So there is a little money from both sides to implement this, I guess this mandate, we'll say. In there is required to have a report. So the RFQ, or what is called the RFP, is ready for release, and it will include in this RFP an assessment of the current and future demands of adult basic education, and types of adult education instruction needed, social and economic outcomes of providing varying levels of ABE, comparative analysis of other states' ABE offerings and best practices, a study of the current organizational structure and agency roles, and recommendations for achieving state goals effectively and efficiently. And the request for proposal was collaboratively put together by TEA through us at Texas Learns and the Higher Education Coordinating Board, and it will go out by the 15th of February. Proposals will be due by March 15th, and a team of evaluators from Coordinating Board, TEA, and TWC will select and award the applicant by the end of March. A completed report will be due by June 30th of 2008 with intermediate submissions of partial completions on that report. And then from that report will come this requirements for this action plan, and at a minimum the things that are listed here will be addressed in that report, and this will be from an outside person, of course, or group. And we expect to have that action plan ready to go by and to the governor's office and the LBV by September 1st of 2008. So we have a short timeline. So these are the things. I'm not going to read them to you. They're there for you to look at. I have a couple of other things I wanted to add. I've added a current funding chart because we talked about this at the last meeting, and I put some amounts. I took this from the federal status reports that have just come out. These are not final because states can always change their budgets for a few months after they're reported, but this was preliminary. And you can see that Texas is just extremely low in funding compared to New York, Illinois, and then Florida and California, and these 5 states we compare ourselves to. So I gave you this information because you asked last time what those actual amounts were, so I'm providing those to you. It's somewhat embarrassing for Texas that we are so severely and poorly funded in adult basic education compared to the other states that I've listed here. Another thing here, if the enrollment for the U.S. this last year for 06-07 was 2,393,359. Texas served 4.28% of those folks, and that's about 4.28%. California, with their large funding, was able to serve 24%. We have a similar population to Florida and California. Florida served, 300,000, serving about 12%. And reason we compare ourselves is because Texas is identified as one of the states with the largest population in need. In the census for Texas, it's estimated, it's identified that about 3 million people don't have a high school diploma that are over the age of 25. So getting to just over 100,000 is about 3.5% of that. And it's interesting, I just threw this in there for your own information. Those 5 large states that I identified serve 52% of that number that is served nationwide, that 2 million, or over 2 million. So we're serving 1.2 just in these 5 states, and the other 45 states and territories serve the other 48% of adult ed. It's interesting, too, that California contributes as a state to this, to educating adults more than the national amount. So that was also something I wanted to let you know. We have selected a subcommittee, which is ready to go. We're hoping to see that action plan come out soon, because when it does, we'd like to, the subcommittee is made up of folks from all the agencies already mentioned, plus the Texas Workforce Investment Council and the Legislative Budget Board. So we have members plus practitioners. So once the action plan comes out, implementing that action plan and bringing recommendations then to you and the powers that be to implement that plan, we're ready to go.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
I appreciate the report, and I'm sorry I missed the more extensive one last time. I think the adult ed is extremely important, and the need, as you pointed out, is overwhelming. I also think there's a tremendous need to do a real hard look at what exactly is it about, what are the needs, how are we going to be accountable for the money that is going into the program. Are the programs of quality? Is it meeting the needs of the adults in the community? One of the problems I think that we're facing is it doesn't have a home. It doesn't have ownership in a community necessarily. That varies from place to place. I will tell you that for Tarrant County, Fort Worth schools are is the fiscal agent. We do the management. I sign contracts with prisons. I sign contracts with businesses and other school systems as well. And I have absolutely no time to do anything other than that sort of thing. And we put another over $100,000 of our own school system money into it just for the management and leadership of it. So I can tell you that it needs a place in the state and in communities where there is ownership and it is acknowledged as important and there is accountability and we are monitoring the results. So I'm very happy to see this direction because I feel a heart need to be a good community member. But in terms of the K-12 mission, the K-12 mission, that's not where our focus is. So I think it's always floundering in my experience in all the school systems I've been in. It's who will pick it up and take the lead. So I would like to see it have a more high-profile place and, I don't know, where there is, I guess, more direction and accountability. I don't know if that makes sense.
There's very high accountability, but when you're only serving out of every 100 people that knock on the door, 3 people,
right?
There's not, like you said, there's not a high profile because there's 97 people out there complaining that they can't get service.
They can't get it,
and
right.
But what I wanted to bring you, and I didn't take your time, is when I compared our performance on our educational functioning levels and those that set a goal to go to work, get a GED, and go to post-secondary, we were higher than those 5 states, than the other 4 states I'm comparing this to. So I know we're doing a good job. We were at 109% of our performance, which is beyond, and so I know we're accountable.
Yeah, actually, I meant mutual accountability. Accountability to the adults in the community and to the programming, not just accountability for the outcome. I think we're doing an incredible job with, given, I keep wanting it to be elevated more in importance, as I'm inadequately saying.
Yes, and I know your community contributes a lot. We estimate it's more than $10 million that the local community contributes to keep this afloat, because we know we don't have the support from...
Right, it needs to be more than a float. Yeah.
Right, and it is just floating.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? We clearly have to do a better job with adult basic education in terms of funding and support at the local level. Obviously, we have a very large number of adults in Texas who are underemployed because of the absence of basic skills. I also like to underscore that the very poor state of adult basic education, I'm not talking in terms of quality, I'm talking about coverage and access. The poor state of adult basic education hurts us in other ways in Texas, because adults who can't read, who don't have a basic job and educational skills, can't help their children do their homework. They can't. They're unlikely to be able to give their children much guidance about going on to post-secondary education. They're unlikely to be able to give their children much help, or at least the quality of help they need in making decisions about professions and career choices and so forth. So adult basic education is key to a lot of things that we do, and we have to shine the spotlight on the needs of adult basic education, and particularly underscore the poor level of support compared to other states. Obviously, and Superintendent Johnson is making this point with if we ask for higher levels of funding, and we're going to have to accept higher levels of accountability, and that means not only the type you talked about, but the type that Superintendent Johnson has spoken about as well. But we will take a very close look at this issue, and we're looking forward to hearing recommendations about what we might do in the next legislative session.
I appreciate that. I'll just end by saying that if you educate an adult, you educate an entire family.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we actually made it. As I said, we will defer discussion of the other items on the agenda till the next meeting. I know members of the council have airplanes to catch and transportation needs. I just wanted to close with one comment. We have 4 new members of the board, of this council, including Commissioner Scott, who's fairly new to his job. And so these last several meetings have been intended to be informational and to bring you up to speed on the kinds of issues we've been looking at over the past several years. And the informational aspect of the council's work is largely past, and you'll see that over the next, from now on, we'll focus more on action items. Think you did very quickly? Okay. Then we have Glendalia Zavala from TEA who wants to make a very quick presentation on Employers for Excellence in Education Award. Please, very quickly, because we have council members who have to leave.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner and council members. My name is Glendalia Zavala. I'm a manager in the Division of State Initiatives with the Texas Education Agency, and I have the charge to put together this wonderful award, the Employers for Education Excellence Award. And just a quick update. We had our first meeting just last month, assembled a committee with representatives from TEA, the Texas Workforce Commission, Austin Partners in Education, and local school district. And our next meeting is scheduled for March, and we will be adding other representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, the local business sector, and the Office of Rural Community Affairs to serve on this committee. During the first meeting, we decided that we needed to establish the criteria for the 3 levels of award that will certify businesses to receive the Employers for Education Excellence Award. Basically, the bronze will be for an employer that implements a policy to encourage and support employees who attend parent-teacher conferences. The silver award for an employer that meets the requirements of the bronze level and implements a policy to encourage and support employees who volunteer in school activities. And the gold award for an employer that meets the requirements of the silver and implements a policy to encourage and support employees who participate in student mentoring programs and activities. So we're really excited about this this collaboration between the business community and our public schools. Our tentative timeline for the Employers for Education Excellence Award is to have our next committee meeting in March, and then follow up with a final committee meeting in April to finalize the criteria, the application, the review process of the applications, and so forth. And then in May, we will have the review and approval of the award criteria by the State Board of Education. In early June, we hope to have a press release announcing the Employers for Education Excellence Award to the business community, and offer that opportunity and application availability through July 31st. The preliminary review of applications that will be received will be reviewed during the month of August, and then hopefully the selection of the award recipients by the State Board of Education will take place in their meeting in September, and recognition of the award recipients would be in November by the State Board of Education. And then finally, TEA hopefully will honor the Employers for Education Excellence Award recipients sometime in January, possibly at the TASA Midwinter Conference, where we already recognize our Blue Ribbon schools and our Milk and Educator Award winners and Texas Teachers of the Year and so forth. So that's where we're at with this program at this time. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Unless there are other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
We're done. Thank you.